Dr. Elisa Bertino and Dr. Ling Li has been working on it, and then maybe you already read several papers related to this kind of the basics about rule-based language. And using these basic components, you can specify the policies. This is just basic rules, delegation authorization rules, and cascading rules, and etc. Once you have basic rules, and then through the basic rules, you can drive various authorization rules. This is just the base rules, delegation authorization rules. Through this rule, currently this is one example of our derivative rules, delegation, authorization, derivation rules. So in this case, we have to check senior, who is the senior, and you can check whether or not this user is active or not. So you can put the component in these derivative rules based on your organizational policies. Okay. And also, you can specify policy, and also you can specify the constraints as well. So just one example, separation of duty. I think, excuse me, I think you are familiar with the notion of separation of duty. Here is some example from bank. Let's say you have purchase manager role, and you have account payable role. And simple separation of duty concept doesn't allow you to assign the single user to both roles, because then he can commit the fraud easily, because he can purchase goods and he can issue the check using his account payable the roles. So you have to have some kind of distinction between the mutually exclusive roles. So the user cannot assign to the conflicting roles, and also the conflicting users cannot work on same task, and conflicting permissions cannot be assigned to same role. And also you may put maximum number of user role assignment or permission role assignment, like cardinality constraints as well. So those are the constraints. So this is a summary of role-based delegation. Sounds like you already have role-based access control model in 96, and we have administrative role-based access control to manage role-based access control. But in this talk, we propose role-based delegation model which can support delegation in role-based access control. So this the notion of delegation is a little bit different from trust management. We are trying to develop delegation notion inside existing role-based access control. That is the difference. And this is the components that we develop to support role-based delegation. And the role-based delegation, the framework can be found in ACM transactions on information and system security of the papers. Okay. And there are various related works, obviously role-based access control literature, and delegation literature, and collaboration literatures, and also the semantics, like how to specify policies. So we look at the various approaches. Okay. So we have the model. Then next question is usability issue and applicability issues. Like I mentioned before, we have lots of access control models, but still industry, they are not using those models. Here's I think, good example. Still, the bank, they are using just username and password for their online banking systems authentication, even though you have nice authentication mechanisms such as smart card or bioinformatics, biometrics, but they are not using it, right? Because we have some gap between industrial, the application, and the research world. So here, my argument is, once you develop the model, then you have to apply the model to real-world application and real-world systems. Then you can prove the feasibility and applicability and usability of your approach. So we develop some systems. Our system has several components, attribute service, because we are dealing with a role, and then your role can be exchanged across the boundaries. So that means you should be able to carry your attribute, your role, across the boundaries. So you have to provide certain service for that, attribute service. And obviously you have to specify policy. So policy service should be there. And we are dealing with delegation. So we have to have some component which can be in charge of delegation and revocation issues. And also you have to have authentication and access control agents. So once you delegate, a delegation agent is for just delegation and revocation. Delegation agent cannot support access control decisions. So that's why we have to additional component called access control agent. So this agent will determine whether or not user can access based on their privileges. So this is some relationship between each component. You have a user wants to delegate certain privilege to the user, then that request goes through delegation agent, and delegation agent will check the role service and the rule service, and then we can check whether or not we have the violation or any conflict between the delegation request. And if everything is fine, then finally the user can delegate the privilege to the user, other users, then other user can access the objects. So in order to support attribute service, we use attribute certificate, so-called privilege management infrastructures. I think you guys are familiar with PKI, public key infrastructure. And along with the public key infrastructure, we have additional notion called privilege management infrastructures. In that, the privilege management infrastructures we have attribute certificate. PKI, they are using just, they issue the certificate with the subject information and the subject's public information, right? But attribute certificate is different. Attribute certificate, you don't have public. You have just user information, and then you can put the user's attributes, user's privilege information here. Okay? In this case, role. And then you can sign that certificate, and you can issue. So this certificate will go to access control, the user. And from the access control server's perspective, okay, here's the example. User received this certificate, so he will know, okay, this is my name holder, and this is my role, let's say director. And he can present that certificate to the access control server. Then from access control server's perspective, he has to know what kind of permissions, what kind of access privileges are assigned to that particular role. Okay, and look, when I discussed about collaborative environment, according to our example, we have various the organizations. That means within your organization, your server will know what kind of permission should be assigned, but other domain they don't know, right? So in that case, you have to issue another certificate to that the access control server. This certificate include just role information and associated privileges like access rights or permissions, so that access control server can know, okay, at least you just present the role, the delegate, the director role certificate, and according to this certificate, director role can enjoy these permissions. Okay, so we are using attribute certificate, and the details can be found in this paper. And using that certificate, you can deliver, or you can carry your role information to the system. And from system server's perspective, you should be able to specify rules. So you have to we develop the rule editor, and using the rule editor, you can specify the healthcare related policies. And then using these tools, finally the user can delegate their privileges. Here, sorry for the small font. Here we have user Dr. Chen. Based on our example, Dr. Chen, he opened the session. Currently his role is primary care physician, primary care provider, and he has certain certificate here, attribute certificate, and he's trying to delegate neurologist the role